The transport ship landed with a soft thud on the rocky surface of Kepler 442b. Dr. Minho Park stepped out first, breathing the filtered air through his helmet. The planet's twin suns cast long shadows across the barren landscape. Behind him, Dr. Yuna Kim gathered her equipment bags. "Welcome to the edge of nowhere," Yuna said with a smile. She had been Minho's research partner for 3 years. They made a good team studying alien life forms. The research station looked like a metal box sitting alone on the empty ground. Smoke came from several vents on top. Large windows showed bright lights inside. This would be their home for the next 6 months. Thex waited for them at the station door. The Velkari alien stood 8 feet tall on 2 powerful legs. His green scales caught the sunlight. Small yellow eyes watched the humans carefully. Thex had run this research station for 20 years. "You are the humans," Thex said. His voice sounded like gravel in a metal tube. "I have heard much about your species. Most of it concerns me." Minho extended his hand in greeting. Thex looked at the hand but did not take it. "We are happy to work with you, Thex. Earth scientists are excited to learn from Velkari knowledge. Your species is young. You have been in space for less than 100 years. We Velkari have ruled the galaxy for 50,000 years. There is much you do not understand about the dangers here." Yuna stepped forward. "That is why we came to learn. Our government wants to build good relationships with all alien species." Thex made a sound like a snort. "Relationships. Yes, humans always want to make friends. This will get you killed on this planet." The station interior felt cold and sterile. Metal walls reflected harsh white lights. Computer screens showed data about the planet's weather and wildlife. Thex led them to a meeting room with a large table. "This planet contains some of the most dangerous creatures in the galaxy," Thex began. "We study them from a safe distance. The rule is simple: never leave the station without me. Never approach any life form you see. Many species here can kill you in seconds." Minho looked at the wall screen showing images of various creatures. One looked like a giant spider made of rock. Another resembled a floating jellyfish with electric tentacles. A third image showed something that looked like a bear, but its fur appeared to be made of sharp crystals. "What is that one?" Minho pointed to the crystal bear, a shard beast. Class 5 predator. It can phase through solid matter and drain life energy from any living thing. They hunt alone and show no mercy. Even we Velkari fear them. "How do they drain life energy?" Yuna asked, taking notes. "Unknown. No one has survived close contact long enough to study the process. We observe them only through long-range sensors." Minho studied the image more carefully. The creature did look dangerous, but something about its posture seemed wrong. "This photo shows it standing. Are they always aggressive?" "Always. They attack anything that moves. The only safe shard beast is a dead one." That evening, Minho unpacked his belongings in his small room. Through the window, he could see the alien landscape under starlight. Somewhere out there, amazing creatures lived and hunted. He had become a xenobiologist because he loved studying how different life forms adapted to their environments. On Earth, he had worked as a veterinarian before joining the space program. He learned that even the most aggressive animals usually acted from fear or pain. Predators only attacked when they felt threatened or needed food. The next morning, Thex gave them a tour of the station's equipment. They had powerful telescopes, motion sensors, and defensive shields. Everything was designed to keep the researchers safe while they observed from far away. "Today we will check the perimeter sensors," Thex announced. "2 of you will stay here. One may come with me, but you must follow every order exactly." "I would like to go," Minho said quickly. Thex studied him with those small yellow eyes. "You seem eager to die, human." "I want to understand this environment. How can I study life here if I never see it up close?" "Up close means dead, but very well, you will stay behind me at all times. You will not speak unless I tell you. You will not move unless I move first." They rode in a small vehicle that hovered 3 feet above the ground. Thex wore heavy armor and carried 2 energy weapons. Minho wore only his standard protective suit and carried scientific instruments. The landscape changed as they moved away from the station. Rocky ground gave way to patches of strange blue grass. Twisted trees with silver bark reached toward the sky. In the distance, small creatures that looked like flying snakes moved between the branches. Motion detected, the vehicle's computer announced. Large life form 200 meters ahead. Thex stopped the vehicle immediately. He pulled out a telescope and looked toward a cluster of rocks. Shard beast, he whispered. It appears to be resting. Minho took his own telescope and found the creature. It lay on its side between two large boulders. The crystal formations on its back rose and fell slowly. Its eyes were closed. It looks hurt, Minho said quietly. Impossible. Shard beasts do not get hurt. They are the ones who hurt others. Minho looked more carefully. Dark liquid pooled near the creature's back legs. Several of the crystal formations appeared cracked or broken. There is definitely something wrong with it. Look at those crystal formations. We leave. Now. Thex started to turn the vehicle around. Wait. If it is injured, it might not be dangerous. Right now. This could be our chance to study one safely. Are you insane? That thing could wake up and kill us both, or it could die from its injuries, and we will lose this opportunity forever. Thex grabbed Minho's arm with a clawed hand. Listen, to me, human. Your species thinks every creature can be tamed or helped. This is not true. Some things exist only to destroy. The shard beast is one of them. Minho looked at the injured creature again. Something deep in his mind told him Thex was wrong. In all his years working with animals, he had learned to read body language and behavior. This creature was not exhibiting hunting posture, it was exhibiting pain posture. I am going to approach it, Minho said calmly. You will do no such thing. But Minho was already climbing out of the vehicle. He moved slowly and quietly toward the cluster of rocks. Behind him, he heard Thex speaking rapidly into his communicator, probably calling for backup. The shard beast was larger than the photos had suggested. Its body stretched nearly 10 feet from nose to tail. The crystal formations along its back glowed with a soft blue light. As Minho got closer, he could see the creature's breathing was labored and shallow. You will be devoured alive, Thex shouted from behind him. Minho ignored the warning. He knelt down 6 feet away from the creature and spoke in a soft, gentle voice. Easy there, big one. I am not going to hurt you. The shard beast opened one large purple eye and looked directly at him. Minho felt his heart race, but he forced himself to remain calm and still. The creature watched him for several long seconds, then closed its eye again. Slowly, carefully, Minho extended his hand toward the injured animal. The moment his fingers touched the crystal formation, everything changed. The creature began to glow with a bright, ominous light. The bright light from the shard beast filled the air around Minho. He expected pain, maybe death. Instead, he heard something beautiful. The crystal formations on the creature's back were making music. Soft, gentle tones that reminded him of wind chimes in a summer breeze. Minho kept his hand on the crystal formation. The creature's eye opened again, but this time it looked peaceful instead of aggressive. The musical tones continued, rising and falling in a pattern that almost sounded like a conversation. What is happening? Thex called from the vehicle. His voice shook with fear and confusion. I think it is trying to communicate, Minho replied softly. He did not want to startle the creature with loud sounds. The shard beast slowly raised its massive head. Minho stayed very still, keeping his breathing calm and steady. He had learned this technique working with scared animals on Earth. Show no fear, move slowly, and let the animal decide if you are safe. Minho, get away from that thing right now. Yuna's voice came through his communicator. She must be watching, through the vehicle's cameras back at the station. It is not attacking, Minho said. I think it is actually trying to show me something. The creature struggled to lift one of its back legs. Dark blue liquid dripped from several deep cuts. The wounds looked fresh, probably only a few hours old. Some of the crystal formations had been completely broken off, leaving jagged edges that must cause terrible pain. You are hurt, Minho said gently. What happened to you? The shard beast made a low humming sound. The remaining crystals glowed brighter for a moment, then dimmed. Minho got the feeling the creature was trying to tell him a story but could not find the right words. Behind him, he heard the vehicle approaching. Thex had finally worked up the courage to come closer, though he kept the engine running in case they needed to escape quickly. "This is impossible," Thex muttered as he climbed out. "Shard beasts do not communicate. They do not show pain. They only kill." "Well, this one is definitely communicating and definitely in pain," Yuna said through the communicator. "Minho, I am recording everything. This is going to change how we understand these creatures." Minho examined the wounds more carefully. The cuts were too clean and straight to be from fighting another animal. "These look like they were made by energy weapons," he said. "Poachers," Thex said with disgust. "They come here illegally to harvest crystal formations. The crystals are worth a fortune on the black market. So someone shot this creature and broke off its crystals to sell them? It appears so, but that makes no sense. Poachers always kill their targets completely. They would never leave a shard beast alive." The creature made another humming sound, this one more urgent. It tried to stand up but fell back down with a cry of pain that made the crystals ring like bells. "We need to help it," Minho said. "Help it?" Thex stared at him in shock. "You want to help a Class 5 predator? Have you lost your mind completely?" "Look at it, Thex. Really look. Does this creature seem dangerous to you right now?" Thex studied the shard beast carefully. It was true that the creature showed no signs of aggression. Its body language was all wrong for a predator. Instead of tense muscles ready to spring, it looked tired and defeated. "Even if it is not dangerous now, it will be once it recovers," Thex argued. "Maybe. Or maybe we can learn something that will help both our species understand each other better." Yuna's voice came through the communicator. Again. "I'm bringing medical supplies, Thex. Can you help me transport some equipment?" "You are all insane," Thex said, but he was already walking back to the vehicle to call for more supplies. Over the next 2 hours, they set up a temporary medical station near the injured creature. Minho worked slowly and carefully, cleaning the wounds and applying healing gel. The shard beast remained calm the entire time, occasionally making soft musical sounds that seemed to express gratitude. "Its crystal formations are not just armor," Yuna observed as she took detailed scans. "They are part of its nervous system. When you touch them, you are actually making direct contact with its brain." "That explains the communication," Minho said. "It was sharing its thoughts and feelings directly with me." "Impossible," Thex muttered, but he was watching the process with growing fascination. As Minho worked, he began to understand more about what had happened. The creature had not been alone when the poachers attacked. There had been smaller shard beasts with it, babies maybe, or a family group. "Where are the others?" Minho asked the creature. The response came as a wave of sadness that made the crystals glow dim blue. Images flashed through Minho's mind. Smaller creatures running away into the forest, the adults staying behind to fight the poachers and protect them. "You were protecting your family," Minho said with understanding. "That is why you did not run away." The shard beast looked directly into his eyes and made a sound that could only be described as agreement. Thex had been listening to everything. This changes what we know about these creatures. If they have families and protect each other, they are not just mindless killers. "Most predators are not mindless killers," Minho explained. "They hunt for food and defend their territory or family. Humans just assume they are evil because we fear them. My people have studied these creatures for centuries. We have never seen this behavior before." "Maybe because you have never tried to help one before," Yuna suggested. As the day grew longer, more equipment arrived from the station. Yuna set up computers to monitor the creature's vital signs. Minho finished treating the worst wounds and started working on the broken crystal formations. "I think I can help these regrow," he said. The crystals seemed to respond to electrical stimulation. He attached small medical devices to the damaged areas. Slowly, carefully, he sent tiny electrical pulses through the crystal formations. The creature hummed contentedly as new growth began to appear at the broken edges. "Remarkable," Thex breathed. We have never seen crystal regeneration happen so quickly. It probably happens naturally, but very slowly, Yuna said. Minho is just speeding up the process. As the twin suns began to set, the shard beast was looking much better. It could stand up without pain and walk a few steps. The new crystal growth sparkled in the fading light. Thank you, Minho said to the creature. I know you cannot understand my words, but I hope you understand my intentions. The creature touched its forehead gently against Minho's chest. The crystals glowed warm and bright, filling him with a feeling of deep friendship and trust. I am going to call you Harmony, Minho said, because of the beautiful music you make. Harmony made a pleased humming sound that seemed to indicate approval of the name. Thex was speaking quietly into his communicator. Minho could not hear everything, but he caught words like unprecedented behavior and immediate consultation with High Command. What is wrong? Yuna asked. Thex ended his call and looked at them with worried eyes. I have reported this incident to my superiors. They are concerned about what has happened here. Concerned how? They believe humans may have somehow infected this creature with unknown effects. A fleet is being dispatched to investigate. Minho felt a chill that had nothing to do with the evening air. What kind of investigation? The kind that usually ends with sterilization protocols, Thex said quietly. In the distance, lights began to appear in the darkening sky. Ships were already entering orbit around the planet. Whatever happened next, Minho knew their peaceful day with Harmony was about to become much more complicated. The Velkari command ship blocked out the stars as it settled into low orbit. Its massive shadow fell across the research station like a dark warning. Fleet Commander Keth had arrived with 12 warships and very specific orders. Minho stood beside Harmony in the medical area they had set up. The shard beast looked much better after a day of treatment, but it seemed nervous. The crystal formations on its back flickered with anxious colors as more ships appeared in the sky. They are frightened, Yuna observed. She pointed to the forest where several pairs of glowing eyes watched from between the trees. The other creatures can sense something is wrong. Thex paced back and forth, his clawed feet clicking on the metal floor. Commander Keith is not known for patience or mercy. If he believes humans have corrupted a Class 5 predator, he will not hesitate to eliminate all evidence. Eliminate? Minho asked. The creature, the research station, possibly this entire section of the planet. A bright light filled the sky as a transport ship descended toward their location. The wind from its engines scattered dust and debris across the landscape. Harmony moved closer to Minho and made low, worried humming sounds. Easy, friend, Minho said softly, placing his hand on the creature's flank. I will not let anyone hurt you. The transport ship landed 50 meters away from their temporary camp. Armed Velkari soldiers marched out in perfect formation, followed by Commander Keth himself. The commander stood even taller than Thex, with darker scales and scars across his face that spoke of many battles. Researcher Thex, Commander Keth's voice boomed across the camp. Report on the contamination incident. Thex stepped forward and gave a formal salute. Commander, the humans have successfully established communication with a shard beast. The creature shows no aggressive behavior and appears to be healing from injuries. Contamination confirmed, Keth stated flatly. Prepare the creature for specimen collection and the humans for interrogation. Wait, Yuna stepped between the soldiers and Harmony. This is not contamination. This is breakthrough scientific discovery. We have learned that these creatures are intelligent and can communicate. Commander Keth studied her with cold eyes. Dr. Kim, your species has been in space for less than 100 years. You do not understand the dangers you have created here. What dangers? We helped an injured animal. How is that dangerous? Because, Commander Keith began, 50,000 years ago, we discovered a terrible truth about certain species in the galaxy. Some creatures possess the ability to form mental bonds with other species. These bonds spread like a disease, corrupting the natural order of predator and prey. Minho felt Harmony tense beside him. You are talking about symbiotic relationships. They exist throughout nature. How is that corruption? Because it leads to chaos. Species that should fear each other instead work together. Predators that should hunt instead protect. The natural balance that keeps the galaxy stable is destroyed. Thex looked uncomfortable. Commander, perhaps we should study this phenomenon more carefully before making any decisions. The decision has already been made, researcher Thex. 50,000 years ago, the Velkari High Command established protocols for dealing with contamination events. All affected creatures must be eliminated. All species that demonstrate bonding capabilities must be restricted or removed. The soldiers raised their weapons toward Harmony. The shard beast let out a deep, mournful cry that echoed across the landscape. The crystal formations on its back glowed bright red with alarm. Suddenly, the forest erupted with answering calls. Dozens of voices joined Harmony's cry, some high and musical, others deep and rumbling. The sounds came from all directions, growing closer by the moment. "What is that noise?" Commander Keith demanded. Other creatures responding to Harmony's distress. "Call," Minho realized. "They are coming to help." Impossible. Wild predators do not cooperate with each other. But even as he spoke, shapes began emerging from the trees. Shard beasts of various sizes moved toward the camp. Behind them came other species, the rock spiders, the electric jellyfish, even some creatures Minho had never seen before. "Defensive. Positions!" Commander Keth shouted. The soldiers formed a circle around the humans and pointed their weapons outward. But the approaching creatures showed no signs of aggression. They moved slowly and carefully, keeping their distance, but clearly, positioning themselves as a protective barrier around Harmony. "They are not attacking," Yuna said in amazement. "They are trying to protect one of their own." "This confirms our worst fears," Commander Keth said grimly. "The contamination has already spread to multiple species. We must sterilize this entire area immediately." He spoke into his communicator. "All ships prepare orbital bombardment, target the forest and research station, full sterilization protocol." "You cannot do that," Minho protested. "These creatures are not contaminated. They are showing natural protective behavior." "There is nothing natural about predator species cooperating," Commander Keth replied. "This is exactly the phenomenon that nearly destroyed galactic civilization 50,000 years ago." Thex stepped forward hesitantly. "Commander, what if we are wrong about this? What if humans have discovered something important about interspecies communication?" "Are you questioning 50,000 years of Velkari wisdom, researcher Thex?" I'm questioning whether we might have made a mistake in our understanding." Commander Keth's eyes narrowed dangerously. "Explain." "I have observed these humans for 2 days. They do not use force or coercion. They show genuine care for other creatures. Perhaps what we called contamination is actually a form of natural empathy. Empathy is weakness. Weakness leads to extinction." "But Commander, what if empathy is actually strength? What if working together makes species stronger, not weaker?" More lights appeared in the sky as the Velkari warships moved into bombardment. "Position." The assembled creatures on the ground looked up nervously but did not flee. They stayed close to Harmony and to the humans who had helped their friend. Harmony suddenly stood up and walked directly toward Commander Keith. The soldiers raised their weapons, but the shard beast stopped just outside their circle and sat down, peacefully. The crystal formations on Harmony's back began to glow with soft, calming colors. Musical tones filled the air, but these were different from before. They sounded like a conversation, with pauses and responses as if Harmony was trying to explain something important. "What is it doing?" Commander Keith asked. "I think it is trying to tell you something," Minho said. "The same way it communicated with me." "Ridiculous. I am not going to listen to monster music." But despite his words, Commander Keth found himself paying attention to the tones. They had a hypnotic quality that seemed to bypass his conscious mind and speak directly to something deeper. Images began forming in his head. Pictures of the planet as seen from underground. Something massive moving in the deep places beneath the surface. Something hungry and dangerous that made even the shard beasts afraid. What is that?" Commander Keth whispered. "I think Harmony is trying to warn us about something," Minho said. "Something much more dangerous than friendly creatures working together." The ground beneath their feet began to vibrate slightly. In the distance, small rocks started rolling down hillsides. The assembled creatures looked nervous and began moving closer together. Seismic activity detected, one of the soldiers reported, magnitude increasing rapidly. Commander Keth looked at Harmony with new understanding. You were trying to warn us about an earthquake? But Harmony's crystal formations glowed darker, painting pictures of something far worse than an earthquake. Something ancient and hungry that was finally beginning to wake up after sleeping for thousands of years. Commander, the communication officer called urgently. Long-range sensors are detecting a massive energy signature beneath the planet's surface. It appears to be alive. Commander Keth stared at the readings in disbelief. How large? Preliminary. Estimates suggest it is larger than our command ship, possibly larger than all our ships combined. The ground shook more violently. Trees in the forest swayed back and forth. The creatures around them made frightened sounds as they huddled closer, to the humans and each other. Harmony stood up and touched its forehead against Minho's hand. New images flooded his mind. Pictures of the creature working together with its pack to keep something terrible trapped underground. Years of effort to maintain seals and barriers that were finally beginning to fail. They are not just predators, Minho said with sudden understanding. They are guardians. They have been protecting this planet from something much worse. Commander Keth looked at his soldiers, then at the assembled creatures, then at the readings from his ships. Everything he had believed about the natural order was being challenged in a single moment. If you are right, he said slowly, then we may have made a terrible mistake. The ground cracked open 20 meters away from their camp. Something dark and writhing pushed its way toward the surface. The bombardment from orbit suddenly seemed like the least of their problems. The crack in the ground spread wider as something dark pushed against the surface from below. The assembled creatures backed away but did not flee. Instead, they formed a protective circle around the humans and began making coordinated sounds that seemed almost like battle cries. Harmony pressed closer to Minho and shared more images through their crystal connection. He saw the planet as it had been thousands of years ago, green and peaceful, with many different species living together. Then came the arrival of something terrible from space, a parasitic entity that burrowed deep underground and began feeding on the planet's core. The shard beasts and other predators worked together to trap it, Minho explained to Commander Keth. They have been maintaining some kind of containment system all this time. Containment system? Keth studied his scanner readings with growing alarm. These energy signatures, they form a pattern around the entire planet, like a massive cage made of harmonic frequencies. Yuna was taking rapid measurements with her portable equipment. The creatures are not just making random sounds. They are generating specific frequencies that create interference patterns. They have been singing this thing to sleep for centuries. A soldier ran up to Commander Keith with an urgent report. Sir, we are detecting similar energy signatures on 17 other planets in this sector. All of them have high populations of creatures previously classified as dangerous predators. 17 guardian worlds, Thex said quietly. How many others did we destroy because we thought cooperation was contamination? The crack in the ground suddenly widened. A thick, black tentacle emerged, covered in what looked like mouths filled with sharp teeth. The tentacle swayed back and forth, tasting the air, searching for living prey. All the assembled creatures immediately began singing together. Their combined voices created a wall of sound that made the tentacle writhe and retreat slightly back into the crack. But the effort clearly exhausted them. Several of the smaller creatures collapsed from the strain. They are weakening, Minho observed. How long have they been fighting this thing? Harmony shared another image. Generations of creatures living shorter lives because they spent so much energy maintaining the containment. The recent poacher attack had broken part of their network, which was why the entity was beginning to wake up. We have to help them, Yuna said. Help them how? Commander Keth demanded. We do not understand their harmonic system. We cannot replicate their frequencies. Maybe we cannot replicate them, but we might be able to amplify them, Yuna suggested. She pointed to the communication arrays on the Velkari ships. Your orbital transmitters could boost their signal strength. Use military equipment to help predators fight some ancient monster? This violates every protocol we have. More tentacles pushed through the crack. The creature's singing grew more desperate, but some of the older animals were clearly reaching their limits. A few of the electric jellyfish collapsed completely, their bioluminescent systems flickering out. Harmony looked directly at Commander Keth and made a series of urgent musical tones. Even without the crystal connection, the meaning was clear. They were running out of time. Commander. Thex stepped forward. What if everything we believed about these creatures was wrong? What if the cooperation we feared was actually the thing keeping the galaxy safe? Keth watched as a young shard beast moved to support one of the failing jellyfish creatures. The predator gently lifted the smaller animal and shared its own energy through direct contact. It was an act of pure selflessness that challenged everything he had been taught. Sir, the communication officer called from the orbital ships. Long-range scans show the underground entity is massive. Preliminary estimates suggest it could consume this entire planet in a matter of days if it fully awakens. And if it consumes this planet? Keth asked. Based on the energy patterns, it would likely reproduce and spread to neighboring systems. We could be looking at a galaxy-wide extinction event. Commander Keth stared at the readings, then at the creatures fighting desperately to maintain their ancient prison. 50,000 years of Velkari doctrine suddenly seemed very small compared to the survival of all life in the galaxy. All ships, he spoke into his communicator. Cancel bombardment orders. Redirect all communication arrays to amplify creature harmonic frequencies. Full power. Sir, are you certain? Came the surprised response. Do it now. That is a direct order. The change was immediate. As the orbital transmitters began boosting the creature's songs, the black tentacles writhed and retreated deeper into the crack. The assembled animals looked relieved and began coordinating their efforts more effectively. But it was not enough. The entity underground was too strong, and it had been building power while the Guardians grew weaker over the centuries. More cracks appeared in other areas as the creature tested different escape routes. We need more than amplification, Minho realized. We need to understand how their system actually works. He knelt beside Harmony and placed both hands on the creature's crystal formations. Show me, he said. Show me how to help. The connection was stronger this time. Minho felt his consciousness merge partially with Harmony's, giving him access to thousands of years of inherited knowledge. He saw the harmonic network as the creatures experienced it, a living web of sound and energy that wrapped around the entire planet. But the network had gaps now, places where creatures had died or been killed by poachers and other threats. The system was failing because there were not enough Guardians left to maintain it. I understand, Minho said. The network needs more voices, but it also needs the right kind of voices. Humans might be able to help. Humans cannot make the same frequencies as these creatures, Thex pointed out. No, but we can learn to harmonize with them. Humans are natural mimics. We learn languages and sounds faster than most species. Yuna was already working with her equipment to analyze the harmonic patterns. I can isolate the frequency ranges each species contributes. If we can teach humans to fill in some of the gaps, that would require direct mental contact with multiple creatures, Commander Keth said. The risk of contamination would be enormous. Commander, Minho stood up and faced the Velkari leader. What if contamination is not the right word? What if what you call contamination is actually evolution? The natural development of intelligence toward cooperation instead of competition. Before Keth could answer, alarms began sounding from the orbital ships. Commander, massive seismic activity detected across the planet. The entity is making a coordinated escape attempt. All around them, cracks appeared in the ground. Black tentacles pushed through in dozens of places. The creature guardians split into groups trying to cover multiple breach points, but they were severely outnumbered. We are out of time, Thex said grimly. Harmony made a decision. The shard beast moved to the center of the camp and began singing with every crystal formation at maximum power. Other creatures joined the desperate song, pouring all their remaining energy into one final attempt to reinforce the containment. But Minho could see through his connection that it would not be enough. The Guardians were exhausted, and the entity had grown too strong. Unless something changed in the next few minutes, the ancient prison would break completely. "Yuna," he called to his partner, "can you match their frequencies with human voices?" "I can try, but I need more people. The harmonic network requires multiple voice types to work properly." Commander Keth looked at his soldiers, then at his ships, then at the creatures dying around them to protect his species as much as their own. "All personnel," he spoke into his communicator. "Emergency evacuation to the surface. Every Velkari who can sing report to the research station immediately." "Sir, that will put our entire crew at risk. The entire galaxy is already at risk. Move now." As Velkari soldiers and ship crews began landing around the research station, Minho felt a surge of hope. Maybe different species really could work together when the stakes were high enough. But the black tentacles were multiplying faster than ever, and some of them were now thick as tree trunks. Whatever lived beneath the planet was almost free, and when it escaped, nowhere in the galaxy would be safe. Harmony led them deeper underground than any surface dweller had ever gone. The crystal formations on the shard beast's back provided the only light in the ancient tunnel system. Behind them followed Minho, Yuna, Thex, and Commander Keth, along with a dozen Velkari soldiers who had volunteered for what everyone understood might be a suicide mission. The tunnels were not natural. Smooth walls showed tool marks from thousands of years ago, and strange symbols covered every surface. The symbols glowed faintly when Harmony's crystals passed near them, as if responding to some kind of energy signature. "These passages are older than our recorded history," Thex whispered, running his clawed hand along the carved walls. "Who built them?" Through her connection with Harmony, Yuna received fragmented images of the planet's ancient past. The first species to encounter the entity. They built this containment system before it could fully emerge. Most of them died in the process. "How many species has this thing destroyed?" Commander Keith asked grimly. "According to what Harmony is showing me, it travels from galaxy to galaxy. It consumes entire worlds, then uses the energy to reproduce and spread to new areas. This planet was supposed to be just another meal." The tunnel opened into a vast underground chamber that stretched beyond their lights could reach. The floor was covered with what looked like a massive spider web, made of crystalline threads. Each thread hummed with harmonic frequencies, creating a complex musical pattern that seemed to echo throughout the entire space. "The heart of the containment system," Minho breathed in amazement. At the center of the crystal web, a dark shape moved beneath a transparent dome of hardened crystal. The entity was enormous, easily the size of a city block, and covered in writhing tentacles that pressed constantly against its prison. Each time it touched the crystal dome, cracks of light spread outward through the web. "It has been trying to break free for millennia," Yuna observed. "The crystal web absorbs its energy and redirects it back into the containment field. But the web is failing." Commander Keth pointed to several areas where the crystalline threads had gone dark. "Too many breaks in the network." Harmony and the other creatures that had followed them into the chamber moved to different positions around the web. They began singing in harmony, their voices flowing through the crystal threads and brightening the entire structure. But there were obvious gaps where other voices should have been. The poacher attacks broke more than just individual creatures, Minho realized. They broke critical nodes in the network. Each guardian species provides a specific frequency range that the others cannot replicate. More cracks appeared in the crystal dome as the entity pressed harder against its prison. Black tentacles squeezed through the tiny openings, testing the air outside its cage. When they touched the crystal web, sections of the network flickered and dimmed. "How long until it breaks free?" Commander Keth asked. Thex was scanning the containment field with his instruments. "At the current rate of deterioration, maybe 6 hours. Possibly less if it finds a weak spot to focus on. And once it escapes? Based on these energy readings, it will consume the planet's core within days. Then it will reproduce and spread to neighboring systems." Yuna was studying the harmonic patterns flowing through the crystal web. "I think I understand how this works. Each species contributes a different frequency range, like instruments in an orchestra. The combination creates interference patterns. that disrupt the entity's ability to phase through matter. Phase through matter? Keth looked confused. That thing is not entirely physical. It exists partially in normal space and partially in some kind of energy dimension. The harmonic field forces it to remain in physical form, where it can be contained. A section of the crystal dome suddenly bulged outward as the entity struck it with tremendous force. Several of the guardian creatures cried out in pain as the shockwave traveled through the web into their own bodies. The system is directly connected to their life force, Minho understood. Every time that thing tries to escape, it hurts them. They have been suffering for thousands of years to keep the galaxy safe. And now there are not enough of them left to maintain the containment, Thex said quietly. Harmony approached Commander Keth and began sharing images directly through crystal contact. Keth jerked back at first, startled by the mental connection, but then forced himself to remain still and receive the communication. "What is it showing you?" Minho asked. "Other worlds," Keth said with growing horror. 17 planets where we destroyed Guardian populations because we thought cooperation was contamination. Without the Guardians, the containment systems on those worlds are already failing. 17 more of these entities? No. 17 pieces of the same entity. It spread itself across multiple planets to make sure it could never be completely contained. If even one piece escapes and reproduces, all the pieces will regenerate. The implications hit everyone at the same time. They were not just fighting to save this planet. They were fighting to prevent a galaxy-wide catastrophe that the Velkari themselves had helped create by destroying Guardian species across multiple worlds. "We have to warn the other planets," Una said urgently. "I am trying," Commander Keth replied, speaking rapidly into his communicator. "But most of those worlds no longer have Guardian populations. The containment systems are probably already breaking down." A massive crack appeared in the crystal dome. The entity pushed a tentacle the size of a tree trunk through the opening. Black acid dripped from its surface, eating through the crystal web wherever it touched. The remaining Guardians poured all their energy into reinforcing the containment, but it was clearly not enough. The web continued to dim as more crystalline threads went dark. "We need more voices," Minho said desperately. "Not just amplification, but actual participation in the harmonic network. Humans cannot interface with the crystal web," Thex pointed out. "You do not have the right neural structures. Maybe not directly, but we can interface with the Guardians who are connected to the web." Minho knelt beside Harmony and placed both hands on the creature's crystal formations. Immediately, he felt the harmonic network flow through his consciousness. It was overwhelming at first. Thousands of voices singing in perfect coordination across an area spanning half the planet. But there were gaps, specific frequencies that no living Guardian could produce anymore because those species had gone extinct or been killed. The missing voices created weak spots in the network that the entity was systematically targeting. "I can fill some of the gaps," Minho said. "But I need help. Una, Thex, even you, Commander Keth. If we can all connect to different Guardians, we might be able to provide the missing frequencies. That level of mental contact could permanently alter our brain patterns," Keth warned. "Look around you," Minho replied. "If we do not try this, brain patterns will be the least of our concerns." Another massive crack appeared in the dome. The bomb entity was nearly free, and once it escaped the underground chamber, nothing would be able to stop it from consuming the planet. Una knelt beside one of the electric jellyfish creatures and carefully made contact with its neural tendrils. Thex approached a rock spider that had positioned itself near a critical junction in the crystal web. Even Commander Keth, after a moment's hesitation, placed his hands on a creature that looked like a living crystal formation. "Everyone ready?" Minho asked. They nodded, though no one looked entirely comfortable with what they were about to attempt. "Then let us save the galaxy." The moment they all made contact simultaneously, the crystal web blazed with renewed light. Human voices joined the ancient song for the first time in thousands of years, filling gaps that had weakened the containment for generations. But the entity had been planning for this moment. As the network strengthened, it struck back with everything it had, focusing all its power on a single point in the crystal dome. The combined attack shattered the containment field completely. For the first time in millennia, the galaxy's greatest threat was free. The entity rose from its shattered prison like a living nightmare. Massive tentacles covered in razor-sharp teeth reached toward the ceiling of the underground chamber. Its body shifted and flowed like liquid shadow, sometimes solid, sometimes pure energy. Ancient malevolence radiated from its core as it tasted freedom for the first time in thousands of years. Minho felt the terror wash over him through his connection with Harmony. The shard beast's crystals flickered with panic as genetic memories of previous encounters flooded both their minds. This thing had destroyed entire civilizations before the first containment had been built. "Fall back!" Commander Keth shouted to his soldiers. "Establish defensive positions at the tunnel entrance." But the entity moved faster than anyone expected. Tentacles shot through the air like striking snakes, wrapping around 2 Velkari soldiers before they could reach the tunnels. The soldiers screamed as their life energy was drained in seconds, leaving only empty armor behind. "The harmonic network," Yuna called over the chaos. "We have to keep singing." The remaining guardians were already pouring everything they had into their voices, but the entity was no longer trapped in one place. It could move freely now, striking at different parts of the network to disrupt the frequency patterns. Minho closed his eyes and focused on his connection with Harmony. Through the crystal link, he could see the entity as the guardians perceived it. Not just a physical creature, but a disruption in the fabric of reality itself. It existed partially outside normal space, which was how it could drain energy directly from living beings. The frequencies do not just contain it, he realized. They force it to remain fully physical. That is its weakness. "What do you mean?" Thex asked, still maintaining his connection with the rock spider despite the creature's obvious fear. "As long as we can keep it locked in physical form, it cannot phase through matter or drain life energy as efficiently. But we need perfect harmony across all frequency ranges." The entity struck again, this time focusing on the electric jellyfish that Yuna was connected to. The creature cried out in pain as black tentacles wrapped around its translucent body. Yuna screamed as the psychic feedback hit her through their neural link. "Yuna!" Minho started to break his connection with Harmony to help her. "No," she gasped. "Stay linked, I can handle this." Instead of pulling away from the wounded jellyfish, Yuna pressed deeper into the connection. Her human mind began processing the creature's pain and transforming it into a new kind of harmonic frequency, one that expressed suffering but also defiance. The effect was immediate. The entity recoiled as if struck by a physical blow. The new frequency pattern seemed to cause it actual pain. "Emotional harmonics," Commander Keth said with sudden understanding. "Humans can add emotional context to the frequency patterns. That is something our species has never been able to do." Not just emotional context, Minho realized as more insights flowed through his connection with Harmony. Adaptive harmonics. Humans can change our frequencies in real time to respond to what the entity does. The creature guardians had been singing the same containment songs for thousands of years. They were beautiful and powerful, but they were also predictable. The entity had been learning to work around them for millennia, but humans were different. Humans could improvise. Minho began modifying his contribution to the harmonic network, adding variations and flourishes that complemented the guardians' voices while introducing unexpected elements. Yuna followed his lead, weaving her pain and determination into frequencies that made the entity writhe and retreat. Thex and Commander Keth were slower to adapt, but they began incorporating their own species' natural sounds into the pattern. Velkari throat singing had never been part of a harmonic network before, but it added depth and resonance that strengthened the overall effect. The entity lashed out more desperately as the modified frequencies began to take hold, but now it was fighting something it had never encountered before. A truly cooperative network that could adapt and evolve in real time. More guardians arrived from the surface, drawn by the changing harmonics. Species that had never worked together before began coordinating their voices under human guidance. The crystal web reformed around the entity, but this time it was stronger and more flexible than the original containment. "It is working," Thex called out as the entity's movements became slower and more restricted. But the victory was short-lived. The entity suddenly changed tactics, focusing its attention on the humans themselves. Instead of trying to break the harmonic network. It began sending psychic attacks directly at the human minds that were coordinating the defense. Pain exploded through Minho's skull as the entity probed his mental connection with Harmony. It was trying to corrupt the link, to turn the cooperative bond into something parasitic and destructive. It is trying to take control of the humans, Commander Keith realized. If it can corrupt their connections with the Guardians, it can turn the entire network against itself. Minho felt his will slipping as the entity pressed harder against his mind. The temptation was there to let go, to stop fighting, and let the creature take what it wanted. It would be so easy to just surrender, but then he felt Harmony's presence in his mind, offering strength and support, without asking for anything in return. The shard beast was willing to die to protect him, just as it had been willing to die to protect its own family from the poachers. That was the difference the entity could not understand. True cooperation was not about taking or controlling. It was about giving freely and trusting others to do the same. Fight back, Minho called to the others. Do not let it isolate you. Share the load. Instead of trying to resist the entity's psychic attacks individually, the humans began sharing the burden through their connections with the Guardians. When the entity struck at Minho, Harmony absorbed part of the impact. When it attacked Yuna, her jellyfish companion helped deflect the assault. The Guardians, in turn, were supported by their own species networks. The shard beasts helped Harmony. The electric jellyfish rallied around Yuna's partner. The rock spiders formed protective formations around Thex's companion. What had started as a few isolated connections became a galaxy-spanning network of mutual support. Every species contributed what it could while receiving help from others. The entity found itself facing not just a few voices, but thousands of them working in perfect harmony. Impossible. The entity's voice echoed through everyone's minds. It was the first time it had communicated directly. Cooperation leads to weakness. Competition makes strength. This is the way of the universe. No, Minho replied. His voice carried through the harmonic network to every connected mind. Competition makes individuals stronger, but cooperation makes species stronger. You have been alone so long that you forgot what it means to be part of something larger than yourself. The entity's form began to shimmer and fade as the combined harmonics forced it back toward its energy dimension. But this time, instead of trying to contain it, the network began to heal it. Human empathy flowed through the connections, offering the entity something it had not experienced in millions of years, the possibility of belonging instead of consuming. For a moment, the ancient creature hesitated. The offer of genuine connection was tempting after eons of isolation and hunger, but the entity had been alone too long. It had forgotten how to trust, how to give without taking. With a final surge of malevolent energy, it attempted to break free from the network entirely. The attempt failed. The combined voices of dozens of species, coordinated by human adaptability and strengthened by genuine care for each other, created a harmonic prison that was both gentle and unbreakable. The entity found itself transformed, its destructive nature slowly being replaced by something resembling peace. It would never again be the galaxy-destroying monster it had once been. Instead, it became part of the network itself, adding its own ancient voice to the eternal song that protected countless worlds. 6 months later, Minho stood in the same spot where he had first met Harmony. The research station had been expanded into a full diplomatic complex, where representatives from dozens of species came to learn about cooperative harmonics. Harmony approached and touched the crystal pendant that hung around Minho's neck, a gift that allowed them to maintain their connection across any distance. Through the link, Minho could feel the contentment of not just his friend, but of guardian networks across 17 different worlds. Commander Keth had become an advocate for the new approach to interspecies relations. Thex served as the first Velkari ambassador to the Interspecies Empathy Institute that Yuna had established. Even the entity, now calling itself Echo, had begun teaching other isolated creatures how to join cooperative networks instead of destroying them. You know, Yuna said, joining Minho by the window. When we first came here, I thought we were just going to study some dangerous animals. Instead, we learned that the most dangerous thing in the galaxy was not understanding each other, Minho replied. Harmony hummed in agreement, the sound carrying across the landscape to where dozens of other species were learning to sing together. The music they made was more beautiful than any one voice could create alone, and in that harmony, the galaxy had found its salvation.